Someone's going to go for two and get it at some point.
It's 1:42 in the morning.
Yeah, that's all right. Number one. Shocker. Ironton.
Man, give me the Trojans.
There we go. Welcome into Overtime, presented by Perfection One. As always, I'm one of your hosts, John Bruce, along with Shayne Combs. Welcome into the premier podcast for Southern Iowa Sports Authority. Probably because we're a weekly podcast at this point. So, episode 84. As always, you can find timestamps for what we're going to talk about in today's episode in the comments below or the description below. Will be where the breakdown of each topic will be. So how are you doing today, Shayne?
Oh, doing real well. Nice to be on break, trying to get all the Christmas shopping done. But it's always a fun time of holiday break. You step away from school a little bit, bunch of basketball, bunch of different sports going on, and then looking forward to later this week getting to spend some time with family.
Yeah, it's a great week. We're going to talk about some different things. We're going to have some discussion points as we've been trying to do at the beginning, and we're at this point just making kind of notes for like what we're going to discuss at different points throughout the season. So I thought last week's discussion on the point guard position was really good. I know you had some really good feedback on it.
Yeah, I love when we talk about something and then you got the games and a lot of people just kind of bring it up and they'll talk about it. One, thanks for listening and watching. But two, that's what I love about this, because you and I are this is what we would do if the camera's on or not. We would just be sitting around and talking sports, and particularly high school sports, because that's our passion. But yeah, the point guard position is something that I love. I love to break it down and watch, and we have some really good ones. And as I went out into games this week, I saw a lot of other examples of some good and bad that really helped and hurt, if I'm being honest, some teams. And but been had some really, really good discussion. And then the JV discussion came up as well. And I know that's something that you've talked to a lot of people about, but there's a lot of mixed opinions out there. But, man, I see some incredible examples of people producing at the varsity level where I think some JV time in the past has really helped them.
Yes, I agree with that completely. Yes, it's always fun to get out and talk with people about, what we're talking about, but also some different topics that we find interesting to hear from other people as well. So, if you have missed out on anything that we've talked about, if you've missed out on overtimes or our Coach's Call-In show, which we're going to be shooting live in just over 3 hours here in the Chillicothe Sports Card Studio, which is where we're at today. If that's something that you want to go back and rewatch, remember that you can subscribe to our YouTube page here, our YouTube channel, subscribe, and then you can also enable notifications, and you'll be able to see anytime we make a post about anything. There'll be different things coming up in the coming days. We have some live streams coming up, which we'll talk about.
Busy week coming up. Busy
week. I know we threw out like a new YouTube short of the Jack Welch shot in the first half. We have different clips of that out. We have interviews on a lot of them on Facebook. Some of them come over here to YouTube, but a lot of times if you want to see those interviews, they'll be on Facebook. Bad Company, I know, is going to be coming back at some point. As I mentioned, the Coach's Call-In show interviews, our baseline to baseline clips, highlights of each game coming out as well. So if you want to see any of that stuff and know when it comes out, enable notifications here on YouTube.
And I know you'll talk about it in more detail later, but right off the top of my head, this is Sunday we're recording.
Yeah.
Starting tomorrow, don't we go Monday, Tuesday, Saturday, Monday on the stream? Yes, I'm excited to call a lot of basketball.
Yeah, it should be a really fun week coming up, and I actually think it's Monday, Tuesday, Saturday, Monday, Tuesday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it'll be a lot of games, and if you want to get away from the family a little bit, there's going to be some games. But if you're going to be with the family, just flip us on and
settle back and watch some SOSA.
Yeah. So a lot of games to watch out there coming up. So one of the things that we're on holiday break. We both work in the school system. Holiday break, started. I guess technically people say it starts on Saturday, whatever, but it starts, Monday, because that's the first day you don't have to go in.
Yeah.
So how do you manage, as a coach, how would you manage your team when it comes to the long holiday break? It's 2 weeks off school and you're still going to play. Like some places don't play. I know some teams are off for a while before they play again, but if you have games, when you have to deal with the timing of practice, days off, how hard do you go during those times? And then when you think about practice, you still have to remember the kids have to get there as well. So where if you're normally practicing after school, well, they're not at school. So how do you look at the holiday break as a coach?
Well, it's certainly not a one-size-fits-all. It just can't be. As you said, year in, year out, you have different makeups. Obviously, the varsity level is going to be a whole different level than, to the point I never even thought about that part of it, like trying to coach junior high, JV levels, trying to get kids there on the non-school days. That's an issue. I think at the varsity level, it starts at the beginning of the year there. The Thanksgiving break's just that one weekend, where now the Christmas, New Year break, now it's going to start to take itself over 2.5 weeks, and you really have to take a look at your schedule. This is, again, that relationship between, if you've listened to us and watched us here on Overtime, we've talked a lot about that coach-athletic director relationship. I think that's really, really important here because some schools want to play a lot. Some schools don't want to play at all. I think now that we play 22 games at the varsity level, I personally think it would be very, very difficult to get those in and not play over the 2 weeks. I never loved taking that much time off. Sometimes you get a little lucky on what day of the week Christmas falls. Sometimes it's a little bit harder. This year with Christmas in the middle of the week, it can make it a little trickier. I heard you guys on the call-in show, which I really enjoyed this past week. You're talking to some coaches about all of the different leagues going to Monday, Thursdays, and Tuesday, Fridays, and Thursday, Saturdays. And what it's done is it's yet another thing that brings Sunday into play a little bit more. So it's just all of those things which I don't love, but it's just part of the culture that we live in the sports. And I think all you can do is try to take a look at where do you play. Make sure you make the most important things the most important thing, which is the kids' well-being and families and holidays and so forth. But then after that, from a coaching responsibility, what do I have to do to get my team ready to play that we can be successful? And you try to be real creative. I know you're going to talk about some film work and some different things. I think there's a lot of things you can do away from basketball if you add those things to your program. But yeah, you want to come in and you certainly want to get that practice time in because it's really, really important. I know some of these teams will play right up to the break or right up to the holiday. But then some of them that are playing right after the holiday, that's when it gets tricky because how do you balance that practice there?
Well, I was looking through when I'm putting down the games of the week this week, and there's a few on Monday, or not Monday, but Friday, which is the day after Christmas. I'm like, man, that's crazy. Because I don't like that. Yeah, I don't like that because then you almost feel like you can't give them Christmas Eve off because you're probably giving them Christmas off.
All right.
Or
no, I don't hate how like when the OHSA started letting them play on the Wednesday night before Thanksgiving. I thought that was really, really well done because you could prepare, play. Then take some time off for the holiday, reset next week. Same way this week, I see some schools playing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. It makes a lot of sense to me leading up to Christmas. But you're right. Some of these incredible matchups we have like on Saturday night, man, that makes it really hard because you have to come back on Friday and get after it. But that can start to scrunch that schedule a little bit.
Yeah, it can definitely make things a lot tighter. And now I will say, as a former JV coach, I think the most important thing on that, whenever you are going to practice, is you get that schedule out way ahead of time. Where the family knows, okay, well, we have practice at 1. Okay, well, we got to figure out a way that they can get there at 1. And then as a coach, you have to be really willing to let some, guys maybe be a few minutes later if they're not able to get there because it is about, you want them to get to places on time. You want them to have that responsibility, but it can be really hard, especially in some of the places where we have kids that live now and they're not always going to be close to somebody else on the team that drives.
you always wonder about weather. Now this year, so far, looking at the 10-day forecast for that's worth, it looks like that's not going to be a huge factor. But you're right. We always think of, okay, this is Christmas Day. You have some Christmas Eve as well. That's not the way it always works with families. You know, leading up to Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, you have a lot of travel involved. You have a lot of different things. So again, I like what you said about putting that out early. You see your game schedule. You have a good idea. Letting families know early. I always thought that was huge, communication wise, and then just going with it. And if you have to adjust, I'm not going to say, like I said earlier, it's not a one size fits all. It's not easy, but at the same time, at the varsity level, you have a responsibility to keep your team prepared, and you just have to be organized, be consistent with it, and then trust that you've put your kids in the best position, not only to have a great holiday break, but to also be prepared for their upcoming games.
Exactly, yeah. So now I do want to throw one more thing out. I didn't have it in our notes, but what about these tournaments where people are going and playing? Like right now, if you're listening to this, Fairland girls basketball might be playing because they're playing early on Monday for their third game down at Myrtle Beach. So how do you look at that? Is that just something where you had to look at that a full year ahead of time anyway before you're even going to do it? So is that kind of a, hey, parents, we're looking to do this, and then you're kind of getting the feedback from them?
15, 20 years ago, John, like a lot of things in sports, the AD or the coach just used to say, hey, here's the schedule, figure it out. And I don't know that we live in that time and culture anymore. What I would suggest there, what I think happens, when you're making that type of decision as a program, I think that's a culture thing where families and different things are probably, that's almost a program investment. Your boosters or your parents of like, hey, we're going to put this trip together. You look at it as, hey, our kids were this age one time. This is a great opportunity for them to go and hang with their friends, and we'll be with the families and so forth. So I think those types of trips are certainly program-wide based. Now, on the other side, I think there are a lot of different holiday things where you guarantee yourself 2 games. There's a championship. There's a consolation. If you're in the right type of rivalry setup, the right type of matchups, I think those are very valuable to your program. I think there's some tournament feel to those. But again, you have to just hopefully the tournament director, the host, and whoever's involved in it, be it a county thing or a regional type thing, hopefully they're looking at the calendar and trying to pick some proper dates over the break to kind of help spread the practice stuff out that we're talking about.
Yeah, it can definitely, there's a lot of things that go into the holidays, and maybe it's a little bit more than people think. And really, as I say that, it was, hey, I just thought of this as we're going over it. Like, here's another thing. So now let's move on to our next topic, which is, film study, scouting opponents, and kind of yourself at the same time. So when you're looking at film and you're having your team look at film, how would you go about it? Like, how would it depend on the age of your team, maybe on how important you found film work to be, or maybe use that film work to get yourself better at that time, where instead of looking at opponents?
Yeah, it's a fascinating topic and one that I love. I'm, like I said, I'm a basketball nerd. So even now that I'm not directly involved in coaching, I find myself still watching a ton of high school sports and watching a lot of film. And I'll sit there and watch it like I'm coaching almost, because I'll find myself rewinding it and look, hey, what they run there? What set they run there? Oh, this kid has this tendency. Oh, if you can make her go here, you could slow her down. All of those different things is still the coach in me. I think, John, in attacking your question, the way I would really talk to coaches about is like, I just feel like in a day of technology, if you're not using film in some way, you're really starting to cheat yourself. It's so available now. You have so many different opportunities to use it off of the huddle and the different things where you can leave your kids notes, you can draw things up. So not only what you're watching as a group, what your kids then have the ability to go. And you might say, well, Shayne, kids aren't going to go and watch film the way a coach would want. Well, that's like anything else in basketball. It depends on how they're taught. So the foundation of my answer to what you're asking me is I would always try from day one, early in the year, early in their careers, teach them how to watch film. So when we would do team stuff, I would want to, sometimes, as you said, we're watching it through a lens of scouting an opponent. sometimes we're watching it in terms of individually with that kid. I might do a lot of one-on-one film session. And when I say one-on-one film session, it might be 10 minutes, 15 minutes, but I'm teaching them how to watch their own film. And if you do that, what I have found, once a kid starts to get into his or her second year, third year, fourth year, that film becomes huge. I've seen tons of examples where I've watched experienced basketball players. I'll touch on them throughout the show this afternoon, where it's obvious someone had been doing their film work or paying attention in the scouting report, and as a result, we're able to make a couple plays for their team that were winning plays. And it all comes from the same way you teach a kid to dribble, pass, catch, and shoot. You have to watch or teach them how to watch film and how to break down film, because they're always on these things right here anyway. You know what I mean? Like you might as well teach them how to turn on huddle and watch themselves play.
Right. Yeah. And plus, if you're going to be using technology all the time anyway, you might as well use it for good as well. So yeah, it's you mentioned the teaching them how to watch film, and that's one of those really important things where I know when I first started, I didn't really know how to watch it. And it was one of my teammates actually helped me, and it was from another coach had shown him. Now, at that time, I was on the JV team, and they were on the varsity team, so they were doing it a little more serious, but I'm watching it and I'm not watching exactly what I should be looking at to try to pick apart on like what they were doing defensively or whatnot. But when I was able to learn it from that, and I was like, oh, all right. So now there's the ability to actually watch it, as opposed to I'm watching it, but I'm like watching it like there's the TV on and like I'm just watching the game. But now even
Entertainment.
Yeah, entertainment where instead of learning and getting better like you would do otherwise.
I think the other interesting part is it comes full circle back to the skills. Like take the point guard position, for example. You're able to watch film for 10 minutes with a point guard, and you can get, he or she can take a look at it, and they can start to see what's happening away from the ball, paying attention to what the other nine play. When you watch film from an entertainment value, you want to watch yourself play, right? Yeah. Oh, look at me. There I go. Dribble it here. And oh, hey, right here. Hold on. I think I score on this possession. That's how kids watch film when they first start, right? But it's if you can get them in the one-on-one setting and you start to teach them from the point guard perspective. Notice what the defense is doing here. Here's why you were able to get this teammate a three. Here's what you should be reading. And before you know it, you hope that their mind starts doing that and the ball handling becomes second nature. Now, if the ball handling is not becoming second nature, well, now we're into a whole different skill development thing. And we got to figure out that. But the IQ of the sport can really pick up. And it's like any skill. Are they going to be very good at it in the first 2 to 3 weeks of their freshman year? Probably not. But man, if you make it a consistent part of your program, I promise you, by the time your kids get to be juniors and seniors, and like I said, I watch it every single night. I watch basketball. I watch kids, being aware of what the opponent's running or not being aware of what the opponent's running. And man, it's the difference between winning and losing.
Yeah, just those little things could make a huge difference. Yeah, so if you want to drop in on any of that, our socials are out there. Reach out to me or Shayne if you want to talk about it. Or, we'll be at a variety of games this week. Now, this week we will be at 3 different boys' games where the week after we'll have a girls' game in there as well. So this week on the boys' side, we will be on Monday night, South Point at Gallia Academy. That will be our first official boys OVC matchup. We'll talk about a big time girls OVC matchup that we had last week. That'll be on Monday night. Tuesday, McClain at Zane Trace on the boys side as well. And then we'll be taking a few days for our families and whatnot. And then on Saturday, a slightly big one in Ross County, Chillicothe at Unioto. If you're going to that game, get there early. I think we're getting there at like 11 a.m. to set up our stuff. So we want to make sure that
I would say a few people attend that one.
Yeah, just a few. As you mentioned, it'll be a pretty fun week. So those are going to be our live streams for this week, as always presented by Ohio Health, and then a bevy of other sponsors as well. You'll see them throughout the broadcast whenever you watch in. So we had a big one on Friday over in Kinnickinnick, big matchup. Unioto goes down off the 207 connector goes over the side of the river to Kinnickinnick and comes away with a 50-47 win over at Zane Trace. Not the prettiest game in the first half, but man, those teams really battled throughout, and that's what made it a really fun game.
Man, they just played so hard. I'd mentioned on the air, John, Zane Trace about halfway through last year, I thought really started to find themselves in some of those toughness categories, and they've really gone to another level defensively. Well, that's carried over into this year. I can't tell you enough how incredibly impressed I was with them defensively in the scrimmage area and in their three-quarter court pressure. Because if you think about the first half, you mentioned Jack Welch had the crazy finish to the half where he had a couple, steal. You hit a half shot inside half court, and then I know Unioto probably had 6 to 8 points off live ball turnovers. Right. I mean, that Zane Trace quarter court defense probably didn't allow more than 10, 12 points in the first half.
It was 19-10 late in the first half. Yeah. Then Unioto goes on a 10-0 run to end the half to go up 20-19. But they really struggled because they couldn't score in the half court. But also, because they couldn't score in the half court, they couldn't set up their pressure. So that made things even more difficult. And then Zane Trace shot the ball really well in that first half as well.
Well, and then that was the second point I was going to say is Zane Trace's supporting cast, I thought, really showed some great growth in that atmosphere. I thought Unioto did a terrific job on Stewart and McCullough. I mean, as good as you're going to do. I mean, they still impacted the game in a lot of ways because they're great, great players. But I thought Zane Trace had some guys like Stevens and Kaiser and Hill. Well, obviously Barry, but I kind of consider Barry one of their big three. Right. You know what I mean? Like we talked about him in the point guard play, but he's a member of that supporting. I thought they were terrific, and I thought they put themselves. Give Unioto a lot of credit. I thought it was a lot of maturity to withstand a little bit. That could have gotten away in the second quarter. It really could have. They easily could have went to the locker room down double figures, and they not only didn't, they led by one. Which obviously there was some good fortune there to hit the deep shot. But I think a lot of it was there was no panic in some of the Unioto group, because again, the Unioto group not as experienced as you think. I mean, they have guys that have played some varsity basketball, but there's a lot of guys playing a lot of roles that are brand new to them.
Well, I think with they did get Jackson Zickafoose back. He was a starter last year, as well as Blake Fitch has been a 4-year starter for them. But besides those two, nobody had started a game on varsity before this year. Now Dawson Mitchell's had a nice start to his season, but man, that was a big. Some big time minutes from David Long coming off the bench because it was just huge. With Dawson Mitchell being 6'8", he's grown so much as a player, but still that it's not a great matchup for him.
Tough ass to have him guard McCullough off the dribble.
Yeah, so where McCullough is a little quicker and still plays a lot bigger than a 6'2" frame. They needed someone that was quick and had some toughness, and that's where David Long came in and gave him some huge defensive minutes.
And remember, I talked about on the boys' preview show, and we even talked about it last week in previewing this matchup, the Unioto offense still kind of a work in progress, and we talked about that, the rhythm of it and finding themselves. Obviously, having a point guard like Fitch helps. I know he was really efficient at the free throw line and ended up having, 15 in the game, I think it was. He was really good as always, very good defensively too. But I thought again, Unioto's calling card was its defense. Even with Hill hitting a three and Kaiser and Stevens and Barry, they still only give up 47. I mean, so they're able to guard at a high level. Here's a team that was already defending at a high level that gets arguably the best on-ball defender in the league back now, and it's just a matter of time that he gets back to full strength. So. I don't question how good this Unioto team is going to be defensively, but I think offensively they still have some things to iron out, and that could take some time.
Yeah, it definitely will. As when you have that little deeper playoff run than they've ever done, you get a little less practice time. Then one of your expected starters coming back is hurt for most of the year, even though he was still there being pretty active, still not able to really get in and run with everybody else. So,
and it would be unfair not to mention Coy as well. Yes. I thought his versatility was really, really important. If you remember, I don't remember which three it was. I can't remember if it was the Hill three or the Stewart three, but he comes right back and answers one from deep. Yeah. And he stepped right into it with a lot of confidence. But I thought he struggled a little bit to find his rhythm in the first half, but to his credit, again, maturity, to his credit, he comes back in the second half and really stepped up and provided some offense for the Shermans.
Yeah, he was huge. Had 11 points, 7 rebounds, and a lot of that in the fourth quarter as he was really, he made some big time plays. He stepped up, hit a couple of big free throws late as well. You mentioned Blake Fitch at the free throw line. He was 7 for 7 at the line.
What a weapon at the point guard position when you can do that.
Yeah, and that just that efficiency really can help you put games away, which he's been a big part of over the last 4 years of a lot of winning. Jack Welch had 14 for the Shermans in that win. I thought their freshmen stepped up, played some good minutes as well. But really, overall, like you said, very impressed with what Zane Trace was able to do. They're gonna, probably be a little frustrated. They're 5-2, and they are 4 points from being 7-0. So I mean, they're very close. But I think at the end of the year, they're going to be winning those really tight games where like they win the Waverly game, a really tight game.
Yes, that was a great game. I had a chance to watch that on film. Yeah.
So I mean, they have a lot of kids that haven't played a ton of varsity, but they're well coached. They've bought in, and then you've got 2 big time studs, and then a really good point guard as well. And that's a really nice mix for that Zane Trace team. That's going to really mix things up. They play a tough schedule. Look for them. I would guess to be down at the Convo once again for those district finals because they're a team that even with you're replacing such a good senior group that they had last year, but man, when you get the point guard can play and Roman Berry can really play, it's going to give you a chance night in night out, and mix in with McCullough and Stewart, and that's a really tough team.
Hey, I can't tell you how impressed I was with Berry. As I said, Unioto, man, they can apply ball pressure for 32 minutes, unlike a lot of teams in the area. And he not only handled the basketball, he attacked them downhill and was giving them problems. And Stewart gets in the foul trouble, picked up his 3rd. I think you and I looked at each other and marked it down at 4:05, if I remember correctly, in the second quarter. Well, it looked like Zane Trace was not only going to survive it, it looked like they were going to thrive in it, but then they get down to the last, 70, 80, 90 seconds, and Jack Welch just kind of
took over,
had a moment. And he was outstanding, and what a lift. Those 2 teams went to the locker room in a completely different momentum flip.
Yeah, it was an outstanding game. So if you haven't seen it, go back and check that out. Sometime later today, there'll be highlights from that game kind of chopped up and whatnot, giving people some time to go back and rewatch it if they wanted to before seeing those highlights as well. So an outstanding game. Look for those 2 teams. Once again, we'll have them both on stream again later this week. Tuesday, McClain at Zane Trace, and then Saturday, Chillicothe at Unioto.
And then we'll have the rematch at Unioto.
We'll have the rematch at Unioto later in the season. So speaking of that Chillicothe team, they finally met their match in a really good matchup over at Hatton Gymnasium against Miami Trace. Miami Trace wins 54-47. That game was also on Friday night. 2 outstanding teams over there. Chillicothe gets out to a 14-7 lead after 1, and then Miami Trace started to really take control, used Adam Guthrie really well. They're up 10 after 3. Chillicothe just kept battling throughout the game, but were not able to overcome. Guthrie ended with 17 points, Gage Bowers with 13, and everything I was told was Gage Bowers was the ultimate difference maker in that game because him at the point guard was just something where Chillicothe is trying some different guys at the point that aren't true point guards like a Bowers, and that was ultimately the difference because you have a Noah Netter. He's outscored 17-9 by Guthrie, but he's able to at least keep Guthrie to 17 instead of letting him go off. So you have that size matchup there, and overall, and then you also Baron Phipps, 8 points off the bench for Miami Trace was huge. I think he had 6 in that fourth quarter for the Panthers as well. Ty Huffman also with 8. For Chillicothe, Cooper Stone came with 13, Caden Cox with 12. As I mentioned, Noah Netter with 9. Chillicothe, 3 of 21 from 3 in the game. And then here's what I really like. 27th consecutive regular season win for Miami Trace. They were 1 for 5 from 3. Hey, it's not their game. Don't play it. If it's not your game, you don't play it. You keep going after the 2s. Yeah. And, obviously 3 is more than 2. But if you're getting 2 pretty often, it all adds up.
Number one thing that jumps out at me is there's no panic in teams that have been there, done that. So like we talked about it with Unioto a second ago, with Miami Trace, when you win that many games in a row, every time you put the uniform on, John, you think, well, we're playing tonight. we probably will win.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's one of those where you have that, it's not even an arrogance anymore. It's a confidence, and it's a whatever it takes. If we might blow you out, you may jump out on us. Well, we'll come back because we're going to win. You know what I mean? So like when Chillicothe goes up 14-7, they come back. It's still 1 point game at halftime. So it's anybody's ball game. But as you said, teams that know who they are, there's a calm. Even in craziness, there's a calm about what it is they're trying to do. We talked about point guards last week. This young man's a really good one, played from day one of his freshman year. He understands exactly the tempo they need to play. They want to play with they play with a little bit more tempo than you think.
Yeah.
So they go a little bit, but then he understands like who needs to touch it. We need to play through the big fella. And we need to make sure so the 17's not bad, but you just wonder how much of Bowers 13 or Huffman or Phipps 8 has to do with the attention Guthrie's drawing that is able to free them up a little bit. And then as you said, I mentioned it on opening night, I think this Chillicothe team's really, really talented. But there is a situation offensively where sometimes it makes it hard to get into some different things and go. But if I'm Chillicothe, I stay the course. I mean, listen, the 3 of 21, I love the three-point shot. I have not watched that game. I would love to get my hands on it. But, like, it's sometimes you take good shots and they don't go in on that night. You know? So I would look at it as 3 of 21 isn't a big deal if you felt like you had taken good shots and the right people are taking them. Now, if you pick out 8, 9, 10 threes and you're like, man, that's not who we want shooting it, that's not a good look, okay, that's a different story. But let's not panic at a stat because all of a sudden you get those same looks the second time around this year and you make 10 of them, maybe you beat them. You know what I mean? So but I love when teams know how to win. I love when teams expect to win. And they're able to win no matter what type of game breaks out because they kind of know who they are and they know how to react.
Yep. And that's what that Miami Trace team has been over the last 2 seasons, and really a little bit more of that. So if you didn't watch on the Coach's Call-In show, Ben Ackley, I'm going to say this, hopefully he does. We talked to him. He's supposed to be our last coach on tonight. So hopefully we'll hear from Coach Ackley on that, as that is in about 4 hours where we'll talk to him. So we'll talk to him a little bit about that game. But yeah, it's just a really good win to go on the road. The Hat is one of the tougher places to play in the Southeast District. It's I think it seats more than you think when you look at it. But everyone's kind of on top of each other, and then the sound kind of stays in. And when the band's there too,
the Chillicothe students, I'll tell you, like I've been in a lot of high school atmosphere. The Chillicothe students, they bring it. Yeah, they're good. They're good at home there.
Yeah, it definitely makes a big impact. So that's going to be a really fun second game to watch over at Miami Trace later in the season. So keep an eye on that. That's a Chillicothe team who, as we mentioned, we'll have them on Saturday on the live stream. I'm going to tell you what. They are going to look gigantic on that Unioto floor because they've got such length as it is. You know, I think the good thing for Unioto is they did face a really good defensive team with Zane Trace because they hadn't really seen it yet. But, man, that defensive intensity that they're going to see on Saturday is going to be even a step higher as well.
And I thought the biggest thing for Unioto was, even though Zane Trace's pressure bothered them, they never really live ball turnover.
Right.
So that's still the key. You know what I mean? Like a lot of times, even when you face those elite defenses, you may not run offenses freely because they're really good. Yeah. But you have to be able to avoid just turning the ball over, especially because we've already watched what Cox can do with that in the open court and some of those other Chillicothe athletes.
I think Netter had 2 dunks the other night as well. So, I mean, it's just they're a very fun athletic team. So that one should be a fun matchup. Miami Trace has a big week coming up with the Miami Trace kind of McDonald's shootout the holiday shootout that they do over there. I know London plays in it as well. So they'll have some quality competition as well. So 2 really good teams. FAC. Oh, yeah. We'll also talk about their Tuesday game, too. So I forgot that's one of our preview games that we'll get to because they've got another fairly big FAC matchup with Jackson coming up on Tuesday. So I'm glad I just kept talking because sometimes you remember stuff as you like when I keep blabbing on.
Hey, Donnie Neff would tell us to write things down to remember them, and sometimes you don't take good notes and you have to just go with it.
Exactly. So let's move on to some of our standout performances of the week. Now, that's one of the this is one of the spots where, you know, we could use some help, you know, because we have such a big coverage area. And if stuff isn't, like, I feel like I'm seeing less and less stuff now than I kind of have in the past, where people aren't necessarily highlighting outside of maybe like their Facebook page as well. I'm not Facebook friends with that many people. So without seeing it, you know, it's hard to see some of the stuff from the TVC that maybe we had seen in the past where, you know, I know like Colton Lloyd had hit his 1,000th point from Eastern a couple weeks ago. We talked about Carson Davis. We didn't talk about, you know, Lloyd at all, but it was I didn't know it.
Yeah.
So, and that's just one of those little things where you don't, you know, we want to find out as much as possible so we can talk about as much as possible. So, you know, when we talk about standout performances, we can talk about teams, players, accomplishments, just things like that. One of the biggest plays of the week, Adena's Joey Francis with a shot from beyond half court to beat Southeastern at the buzzer 43-40. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Just incredible. I think I called it a 70-footer the other night. I got to thinking about it. It was on the other side of the 10-foot volleyball line. It's probably every bit of 55, 60.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But nonetheless, it's just, John, here's my thing. I'll give you my honest, very, very first immediate response. Sports can be so incredible, and then sports can be so cruel. So, I mean, it's one of those things where, like, when you have a shot like that, you've got one side of the gym that's just like, they feel like they've just absolutely, you know, have stolen the victory. And then another side that had, at that time, was really struggling to win, played a great game. Because I'll tell you what I did the next day is I went back and watched the game because I wanted to see what had led up to that. And in that game, Southeastern hits a three. I think it was Straw's ball, I believe.
Yeah.
I don't have that in front of me. Hits a three. They go up, and then they come back. Adena scores, and then they're going back and forth. So it's tied like at 40 after Southeastern made a free throw. And Adena turns it over. Southeastern takes the ball. They hold it all the way down to 19 seconds. They call timeout. They come out, and they're trying to hold for the last shot. An Adena kid pokes it away from behind as a Southeastern kid catches it down on the baseline. His left foot's on the end line. So now Adena has it with like 5.1 seconds to go going the full length of floor. They throw it in bounds, and Southeastern has a steal but can't control it coming down in play to get the timeout. That's how that ball ended up over on the side at 3.1. And then by now, I assume most people have seen the video. If not, go watch it. It was great.
Yeah.
It was an incredible finish. But you follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, obviously you felt really good for Coach Day and his kids. You just felt sick for Coach Alley and his kids. But that's where, like, sports could be so fun and so, like, you know, yee. And then all of a sudden it could be like, man, this is just awful. And it's just the worst feeling in the world. And that's why we keep coming back for it.
Well, and that was one where, like, you don't always have to have the sound on things. That one was one, you know, the video we got was from Adena. So you hear them going crazy, and then you can just see on the other side of the gym, they're just sitting there. And the Southeastern kids are just walking off the court. Because, like, what do you do?
I mean,
It's like a walk-off home run where Dennis Eckersley said, throw the pitch, and then you walk off. And it's just, you know, it's just, you know, it's tough. And it's, as you said, it's the really good. And then the worst part about sports as well is, you know, the disappointment that comes. But that's also one of those things where those Southeastern kids will be able to talk about that game for a long time and be like, yeah, remember we had Adena beat, and then Joey probably with something in there, Francis hits a half quarter to beat us. And, so I mean,
now help me on this too, because like at the time, Southeastern's still looking for their first win. Man, you talk about give credit to kids, give credit to Coach Alley and to that team. They come back off of that. That's the type of thing when you're 0 and 4 or 5 or whatever, that can just kill your season. They didn't let it bother them at all. They come back and they end up winning a couple games this weekend, right? So I mean,
they win at Westfall, and then I believe they won at Federal Hockey. That may have been at home, but they beat Fed Hawk also. So they went on Friday and Saturday after that heartbreaker on Tuesday. You said it. It can go, and I'm sure he said it afterwards in the locker room. It was like, hey guys, our season can go one way or the other. Yeah. It can either snowball and go downhill, or you shake it off and you bounce back. And they've played some really tough teams to start the season, so now would get things right, and they were able to do so. Westfall, really tough place to play. It's a really good win for them. And then you beat Fed Hawk the next day. So, yes, only at 2-5, but a great response.
A little bit of momentum, and it is just a great character check. And that says a lot about their coaching staff. It says a lot about the leaders of that team.
Yes, I agree completely. So, speaking of Westfall in a way, but also a big comeback, Piketon was down 23 points on Tuesday. The same night Joey Francis hits the half quarter, Piketon down 23 points against Westfall, comes back and wins 65-61 over Westfall. Just an outstanding comeback for them. Jace Ritchie in that game had 20 points, Trevin Shanks 14, Bo Henry with 13. And then Piketon just keeps rolling. On Friday, they beat Adena to win their 4th out of 5 games. They started off 0-4, now sitting at 4-5. They're right back kind of where I think we expected them to be, kind of right in the mix for the middle of the SBC, where at the beginning it was like, uh-oh, but they've really responded well.
Well, if you've listened to us talk basketball, you know how I think of Kyle Miller. He's outstanding. I mean, he's an outstanding basketball coach. Does a really good job. And
correction, 4-4 overall.
4-4 overall.
Yeah.
So if you think about this with me, John, like with back in the boys preview, we were saying with Bo Henry coming back, and we rattled off 3 or 4 athletic kids that all averaged, I can't remember, I don't have those notes in front of me still, somewhere around 4.5 to 7.5 points a game. Mm-hmm. And we said, if they all take a step forward, how can this basketball team not be good?
Right.
Well, then all of a sudden they get off to the bad start, and we're like, well, maybe we didn't. Now you're starting to see a little bit of that. Can I admit something now? I did the cardinal sin of sports here, okay? That was the night we had some weather. A lot of the area games were canceled. Yeah. I'm watching that game. And out of the locker room, I'm like, okay, I'm going to give the Red Streaks a chance here to keep my attention. And they come out, and they didn't. And I want to say it was like 37-17, and I turned it off. I turned it off. And then I'm sitting around about an hour later, and I'm going back on the social media or whatever, and I'm like, what that score say? You know what I mean? And it was one of those where then I had to go back and rewatch it or whatever. But like, again, if you're going to watch a sporting event, give it a chance start to finish, because you never know what you get to see or what you'll miss if you turn it off.
Yeah, 100%. So that's a Piketon team that is one of those that'll never quit. And, man, that's just an outstanding win for them. And that's one of those, once again, that you can really build a season off of. So they beat Northwest on Saturday, and then they're one of the 3 games that got played down at Shawnee State, and then they are able to come back on Tuesday. Actually, it was on Wednesday, because that was another.
You're right on the Shawnee State. They kind of got the best time to get a chance to play. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they're able to come back to beat Westfall. As I got corrected right there, it got moved to Wednesday, so they win on Wednesday, and then beat Adena on Friday. So a really good run for them, and they've got an interesting little holiday coming up as they play. They did this thing for a few years with Huntington, Eastern, Western, where Eastern, like, it was 2 teams from 2 leagues where they would go to one location and they would play. And then the next night they would switch. So the league teams wouldn't play each other. So it'd be like.
So it wasn't a winter consolation. It was already a pre-plan.
Yes.
We're going to play these matchups. Yeah.
Well, they went away from it last year. Well, now it's kind of the same thing. Piketon and Paint Valley now are going down to North Adams and playing North Adams and West Union. So there used to be a classic down in Adams County, and it seemingly has gone away. And now they're playing it this way, and now Piketon's got a chance. You're going to play West Union over at North Adams, and then you play North Adams at North Adams. That's 2 quality opponents that you can play to maybe build off of this little run that they have.
Yeah, they've just been playing really well. And when I see Ritchie and Shanks and Henry, they're getting that 3rd guy in double figures. I think they have 5-6 guys that on any given night could score 10 points in a varsity basketball game. That's good.
Yes.
That's really hard to guard. Again, they're well coached. He has a good coaching staff. So I would give a big hang in there with these Red Streaks. I think that they can become a dangerous opponent into the second half of the year.
Yeah, I agree completely. And then a team that didn't start for quite some time because, the thinking they were going to have the deep playoff run ends up not, obviously not happening for Ironton, but they played 4 games this week. They went 4-0, and they did it over 5 games, so 5 days. So they played, I believe it was Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So they win 4 straight, and then they topped it off with that 4th win, a pretty dominating win over South Webster, in which they hit 11 threes in the game. So, they're a team that, they had a lot of time to practice, obviously. I think we were pretty high on them, but we weren't 100% sure on, some of the scoring that they're going to have. Ashton Lane, we knew what he could do. He's been outstanding so far, but Bryson Mullins has been really good as well. They combined for 37 in that 20-point or 18-point win over South Webster, who's a really good team.
Good team.
That was South Webster's first loss on the season. So, Lane, Mullins combined for 37 in that one. Mullins hit 6 threes in the game. But then you have a Steven Eisen, Maddox Markle, Zane Williams, Caden Edwards. Those are just some unreal athletes that Ironton's going to put out there. They're just going to be able to guard you, and it's going to be really tough anytime you play them.
Well, that's what I was going to talk about is when I got a chance to call one of their games from floor level last year, their athleticism is off the chart. You talk about bigger, faster, stronger. So this is going to be a team, as they settle into basketball season, they're going to guard you. They're going to guard you with some physicality. Usually in today's basketball, that lends itself to winning a lot of those hustle categories, 50-50 balls, sometimes even the rebounding and turnover categories. And so when that type of team starts shooting the ball at that level, wow. That what'd you say, 11 threes?
Yep.
That's a recipe for big-time success.
And it does not get easy at all for them over this holiday break, because Tuesday they've got Chesapeake. That's a real fun one. Then they're at Fairland on Saturday, and then next Tuesday they are at Wheelersburg. So, just a really tough schedule to start, but that's what's going to make them a really tough team. And in that Division 5, they're going to be a really tough matchup as well.
Yeah.
So now moving on to a team that had a little bit of a slow start, and we don't really talk about them. They're a little bit outside of our coverage area with Bloom Carroll. And this way we can talk about the Mid-State League a little bit. Bloom Carroll starts off 0-2. Chillicothe really hammered them on opening night. Yeah. And then they go lose by 3 to Circleville that next week, but they've won 4 straight, including this week. They beat Logan Elm and Hamilton Township to move to 4-2 on the season.
Well, I think a lot of times we have to talk about a Bloom Carroll in order to properly paint a picture of what a Circleville, what a Logan Elm, some of these schools have to go up against throughout the course of that mid-state grind. It's a situation where on opening night when we had Bloom Carroll, I was talking about how I want to say they had 7 of 12 players, maybe sophomores on their roster, and I was talking about getting them early was when you wanted to get them because you knew, John, the quality of program and what that name on the front of their jersey represented, a lot of pride there, that they were going to get better. Well, forget second half of the season. They got better 2 weeks later. What a quality win that is. But we've seen the Hamilton Township be on and off. But I really like this Logan Elm team. Really like the Circleville team too. But again, I think it shows you there's just no nights off. I know Fairfield Union, watching them a lot on film last year because that's who Unioto played in the tournament. Man, there's some really good basketball being played in that Mid-State League.
Yeah, so it's a 7-team league. Circleville right now 5-1, Bloom Carroll 4-2. Circleville's only loss was to Hamilton Township, who's 4-2 right now. It seems like they're getting healthier. Logan Elm 3-3, Fairfield Union at 3-1. Each team in the MSL Buckeye already has a league loss, and some of them have only played 2 games, some have played 5. So with that being a 7-team league, it can get kind of unbalanced. Then we had that weather. So, we kind of mentioned in the preseason, the winner of this league might have 2 or 3 losses, and it looks like it's really coming true. Well,
and you mentioned getting healthy. Sometimes you got to get a little luck sometimes in a championship run. Sometimes it's who you play, but then sometimes it's when you play them. You think about it throughout, we've had a lot of NFL on the TV here in the office today, and you think about some of those things throughout the year of if you played a a particular team, like let me think of an example, like say the Commanders, okay? Like let's say after last year you play a healthy Jaden Daniels the first 2 or 3 weeks of the season compared to playing that team at the end of the year.
Right.
Two different teams. So sometimes it's just the luck of the scheduling. It's nothing you do right or wrong. It's just like anything. You catch a break, you got to be able to take advantage of it. And sometimes you might run into a Hamilton Township where they're down a player. Other times you might be playing them at full strength. That's two different things.
Right. Yeah, completely. So speaking of teams that are, seemingly getting things right, let's go over to Lynchburg, who, won their first game of the season, beat McClain, then lost 4 straight. It seemed like they were on the verge of teetering to the bad side, but they competed really well with Peebles, who's still unbeaten, on Tuesday. Then they play Blanchester, beat them by 26, and then they go to North Adams and handily win. A 54-38 win on Saturday night to move to 3-4. And now you're looking at a schedule that's starting to open up a little bit for them. We thought there's a chance they could be on the wrong side of it before things opened up, but man, just putting together some wins. Really nice weekend for Lynchburg Clay.
It is. We talked about it with Southeastern earlier. There's probably a game, maybe two, that they probably wish they could have back in that mix that you talked about, where they lost 4 in a row.
Yeah.
But even the way they played some of those opponents, John, told me that again, coaches and players were still locked in. They played a really good Fayetteville team.
Yep.
Pretty competitive. Then they held. I know they lost the game,
Yeah.
but then they held Peebles to like 61. I mean,
Yep.
Peebles been scoring 70, 80, 90.
Right.
So that tells you they were still competing. They were still doing some of the right things. Well, now all of a sudden you get one to go your way and get some confidence in a blowout win. Well, then you come back and you validate it with a really, really good win over North Adams. So that's a team to watch out on. You and I, we watched them earlier in the year. They have the athleticism, protecting the rim there a little bit. They have some kids on the wing that can really guard you. I think for them, a lot of times it's taking care of the basketball and finding enough consistent offense that they've got enough there to be a very competitive basketball team.
Yeah, they've got a few days off, and then they have Hillsboro, who's going through some stuff right now, coming in next Tuesday. So that's one to keep an eye on for sure. And then that next Saturday, they're over at the Chad Hodson Classic against Eastern Pike. So it doesn't really get easy, but starting to open up a little bit for them as we move into Christmas. So speaking of the Shack, so I know there was one more team you wanted to talk about that we've talked about a good bit, but had a really nice win this week.
Yeah, I've been real impressed with Eastern. I know we've talked about them a lot, so again, I won't spend a lot of time on it, but I just think when I see good basketball, I like to highlight it. It's one of those things where watching their balance throughout and how many different guys can step up and get them. Their efficiency jumped out at me this week, John. Matthew Dick had 24 points on their White Oak win. He did it on 13 shots, 11 of 13. And again, that's the team working that inside out. I know Braxton Vance had 22 in the West Union game. They've had 3-4 guys in double figures. Then I'm reading different stats because again, how much of I'm a nerd when it comes to playmaking. We highlighted Kane Dotson. I would throw Chase Pinkerton in there as well. Both of them in the one win had 5 assists, 1 turnover. So when your playmakers are playing at a 10 assist, 2 turnover level, are you kidding me? With the talent they have, they become unbeatable. You know what I mean? Their efficiency becomes off the charts. And I was just thoroughly impressed that night with how complete they were in terms of how they had the ball handling, they had the shooters, they had inside play, they had physicality, they rebounded the ball well. If you wanted to play in transition, they'd run with you. If you want to execute in the half court, they'll do that as well. Just really complete.
Yeah, it's a really good team for Coach Buechler over there with Eastern Brown. So I know they were one of the games that I had highlighted on the games to watch as they welcome in Eastern Pike, in what should be a really fun matchup in the Battle of Eastern. It's not the Eastern Eagles versus Eastern Eagles, but the Eagles against the Warriors. So maybe we can throw. I mean, really, let's throw. East is in a different SOC now. Let's throw East in there, and then we can have Eastern come in for Megs, Southeastern, Northwest. Let's get a directional. Western, get a directional battle.
Now you're confusing me. I'm trying to put all that together on my geography map.
Yeah, it's there's not really a really place right in the middle for all of that, but just have some fun. That's what we should have done for the SOSA Classic. Is just let me make the schedule and just have me do it as sarcastically as possible. So, keep an eye out on all these teams that we talked about with our standout performances. And then if you see anything else, make sure you reach out to us or just SOSA in general so we can highlight them as always as well. So, let's move on to our games of the week. So we'll get into our first game, for streaming, which will be on Monday. South Point at Gallia Academy. And this one, I think, has a chance to be a really interesting game. Really good point guard matchup in this. David Lewis for South Point is really the standout for them, and Ty Reed for Gallia Academy. South Point coming in at 1-2, Gallia Academy at 2-3. But man, they had really tough losses at Waverly and then against, I believe, at Jackson as well. Mm-hmm. Their wins are over Athens and Rock Hill, and those are solid teams as well. They lose by double figures to Fairland, who, as we've talked about, is a good team at 3-1. But this is a team, Ty Reed, an outstanding player, he had 20 points in that Fairland loss. But once they get Mason Meadows back, they're going to be really dangerous.
Do we know what that status is? I understood he left that game, but we don't have any idea.
I have not seen anything for sure. So
that's huge.
Yeah, because he was huge in that Waverly game. Then he gets hurt late and is unable to finish the game. And then after that, they just they've had to play without him for a while. And then by doing so, you are actually probably going to get a little bit better for when he comes back, as long as you can rebalance everything.
Well, and it always goes back to certain guys, there's no next man up, right?
Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, each person has to carry a little bit more, and as a result, if you stay connected, you do get better through that process. Mm-hmm. But man, that's hard. I mean, when you lose someone, especially if you're in the middle of a schedule where you play 6-7 times in 20 days or whatever, like the way these reschedules go and stuff. Man, injuries can really come at a harsh time sometimes.
Yes, for sure. Now, this is a South Point team that also only has one senior on the roster, so keep an eye on them throughout the season as they're going to get better and better. So that's a game to watch on Monday with the beautiful blue floor down there. And
love going down there. They always really welcome us down there, and what a great community. They love their sports. They really support their kids.
Yep, should be a fun matchup in the OVC on Monday night. So then we move over to Tuesday. McClain at Zane Trace on Tuesday, a rescheduled game from last week in the ice and snow. I believe that was going to be a Monday game that got pushed back. So kind of a rare Monday game with, school still going in session, was able to get pushed back, and then we were able to jump in, and now we're going to have it on a live stream. So McClain coming in will be 2-4 on the season. Really tough schedule with the FAC. They had a really nice win over White Oak where Hudson Lovett hit a shot with just under 2 seconds left to win it for them. But, man, they've got some nice pieces. Jordan Bell, Lovett, as I mentioned, Connor Chandler, all averaging in double figures. Jordan Bell's averaging close to 20 a game. It's going to be a tough matchup for them, but it's not because they're not going to be ready with that schedule that they played so far.
Good athletes. They're used to playing high-level competition because you mentioned the FAC. They just played a really competitive FAC game the other night, low-scoring affair. And you're right. Taking care of the basketball will be the premium. We watch firsthand how Zane Trace can really get after you and start to do some things. Zane Trace can go both ways. They can come out and use their length in the three-quarter court. They can also really lock you down and pressure you a little bit and get their athletes out into the passing lane and so forth. So Greenfield will have to take care of the basketball. That has a chance to be a nice matchup there. Two programs that over longevity here in the last 20-25 years, they love their basketball, and should be a good atmosphere there.
Yeah, it should be a fun matchup as well. As we mentioned, Zane Trace 5-2. The 2 losses by combined 4 points also beat a really good Waverly team. So I mean, they had a tough 1-point win in overtime at Adena as well. So they've gone out, challenged themselves, and that's made them really ready for this moment at this time. Look for Gunnar McCullough and Grady Stewart to step up big, but also should be a fun matchup with Roman Berry out there as well.
Yeah, good guard matchups around. You're right about McCullough. He could really be the X factor in this one because McCall has really faced some size here of late where teams have been throwing the kitchen sink at him. This might be an opportunity where the guards will kind of get locked up in some of these really great battles where he might really get a chance to get free in this one a little bit and really post some numbers.
Yeah, it should be a fun one over there in Kinnikinnick. So that is on Tuesday. But also on Tuesday, unbeaten Jackson at unbeaten Miami Trace, a game that was rescheduled from last Tuesday. We were going to talk about it last week on Overtime presented by Perfection One. Didn't have a chance to because by the time we came in here, it had already been canceled. So they moved it to this Tuesday. Should be a really outstanding contest.
Yeah, just an incredible rivalry. And you mentioned the Miami Trace winning streak earlier. Part of that, John, is you win one big game, well, then the next one's a big one. You know what I mean? Like every single game, you have to find a way to reset yourself. And it kind of goes back to routine. We talked about at the very beginning of the show, film work, scouting report, going through, knowing your opponent. Well, obviously, these two know each other really well. You have incredible athletes on both sides. And man, what a great matchup. That's exciting to be a part of there. Last year that comes down to the one time onto the last second shot there, and it was the big finish there. It wouldn't surprise you to think that it's going to be the same type of game. So you're probably looking at a situation of who can execute end of quarters, things like that, to really take the smallest advantages possible because I'd be shocked to see one of those teams blow the other one out.
Yeah, I would as well. Last year, executing at the end of quarters was the difference in this one as Gage Bowers had a game winner in the closing seconds to beat Jackson over at Miami Trace, a really an instant classic on a Saturday afternoon.
Game. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, driving over. I can tell you it was February 1st. Also, got to see my boy John Cena in person that night. So we were on our way. And
I was going to ask you if you were doing okay there.
I talked to Dewey. Dewey was not happy.
Yeah, I just didn't know if you were going to need some time off or if we were going to take a week off. Or...
No, I mean, it's just. It is sad, but then I got to see Cooper DeJean do the John Cena celebration after an interception, which really ends up being funny because he's definitely dating John Cena's ex-fiancee now, which makes it even weirder. But moving on. So, Jackson at Miami Trace Tuesday night. If you're going out to that game, make sure you bring us along with the live stream for McClain and Zane Trace on Tuesday night. But there should be plenty of options to watch that game as well. One of the reasons why we're not going to be there for that because you have those other options as well. So then Saturday night, big one over, as we said, in Ross County, Chillicothe at Unioto on Saturday night. Last time they played there was just an absolute instant classic over there, but it's been quite some time, almost 10 years since they've played in the regular season.
Yeah, glad to see it come back. I think both athletic programs were eager to get it back. I just think it makes a lot of sense. It's especially over the holidays. It's a great test for both teams. It's a game that you win. It can really help you, but if you lose it, it's not the end of the world. You know what I mean? I just think it makes a lot of sense for the communities, for the fans. And you look at the matchups across the board, it just helps prepare you for the second half of your season. You look on the Unioto side, their ability to pressure the basketball, and you mentioned how Chillicothe has really talented guards. Maybe not guards that love the idea of running the point, but they're very talented.
Yes.
So that's going to be an incredible matchup. And then the size of Chillicothe when they get on that front line. You mentioned Netter. Hammond's versatility can be really good. Not to mention Cox and Stone King there on the perimeter, but it's just those guys there as they start to put some of that size inside. It's going to challenge Unioto at the rim. So I think one of the things Unioto's offense has really struggled with is just kind of reversing the basketball and getting to a second and third side. And that's going to be something that's going to really rear its ugly head if they don't get that fixed. Because on the first side of the floor, not to make this too technical of a podcast, on that first side of the floor, the size of Chillicothe, if you don't reverse the basketball against them, they'll just engulf you with their size and athleticism. And then that's when they're going to get out in transition and go.
Yeah, if they can get out in transition, it could be a long night for Unioto. But if Unioto is able to, pressure the ball and make them run through their stuff offensively, make it more of a half court game. It's going to be a really interesting game. Could be one of the lower scoring games when you think of these athletic teams that can really get out and score. But I could see this being a pretty low scoring game.
Yeah, you mentioned another thing that's interesting. I touched on it in the pregame the other night in the Zane Trace Unioto game. These smaller, older gyms. So like this particular matchup's going to pack just about whatever facility it's played in. But Unioto has a really small gym by today's standards, if you think about it. So you're going to get a lot of people in there. It's going to be an unbelievable atmosphere. But then, as you said, the smaller floor, the walls are a little closer to the baseline. The 10 athletes that are going to be on the court at all times in that thing, that's going to be something to watch.
Yeah, should be outstanding to watch for sure. So get there early and fill up that gym and make it loud for those early games as well, because that's one of the most fun games I ever had coaching was a freshman game that was borderline sold out by the time it started. So I mean, it was
those are the things too that can help freshmen and JV start to grow again, because we've talked about that. It's missing in our area. We need these bigger atmospheres that can really kind of promote the freshman and JV game a little bit as well.
Yeah, because really the other night over at Zane Trace, it wasn't really pretty packed until like late in the first quarter. Because the JV game moved along a little bit faster than I think people expect to, and then got there a little later, and because of that, it didn't have a ton of atmosphere early. It definitely had the atmosphere by the time we got to halfway through and whatnot. But those are the games of the week this week. So as we mentioned, our streams always sponsored by Ohio Health and a variety of other sponsors as well. But South Point at Gallia Academy on Monday, Tuesday McClain at Zane Trace, and then Saturday will be Chillicothe at Unioto. So that's our live streams for this week. Some games to watch this week as well. There's some pretty good games each night, even if you're not watching the live streams or if you're going out to other games as well. Monday, Portsmouth, who's off to a nice 3-0 start at Fairland, 3-1, who's only lost to the Hurricane West Virginia on Saturday over at Ironton. Some really good athletes are going to be on the floor of that game. Cliff Franson and Trevor Locko for Fairland have been outstanding so far this year. And just, keep an eye on that one. That one should be really fun. I think Fairland Sports Network should have that one.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed Fairland there on opening night when we had them at the Tip-Off Classic. I think they're going to be a really good basketball team, and then Portsmouth athletically will challenge them on the defensive end a little bit. So, yeah, that's a good old OVC just a good rivalry matchup there.
Yeah, it should be really fun over on that. Coach Thomas is going to also be calling into the Coach's Call-In show tonight or Sunday night. So if you haven't seen it yet, go back and watch that as well. So then we talked a little bit about that, that that event at North Adams is going to be those two teams. There's 4 teams playing out of multiple leagues, but you got another one in the Brad Morris Classic. Brad Morris, one of the great riders of our area, sadly passed away a couple years ago, and the schools in Pickaway County have done put together the Brad Morris Classic to kind of celebrate him, but also get some scholarship stuff out to some young men and women of the county, because that's what he loved. And it's going to be, I think the first night is going to be at Taze Valley. You have Circleville at Taze Valley, Logan Elm, Westfall. Now these are going to be the girls teams are playing, then the boys, and then the girls team and then the boys. So Westfall, Logan Elm are the first 2 games of that first night, and then Circleville and Taze Valley will be the second 2 games. The next night, which will be Tuesday, will be at Logan Elm, will be Westfall and Circleville, and then Taze Valley and Logan Elm on those days. So Circleville at Taze Valley on Monday night will be a really big one.
It's just so well done. Brad, you're right about Brad. His passion was kids, covering kids and promoting kids. And that's just awesome that they're doing that. I think that's really well done. And they have good programs up there. Mm-hmm. So the basketball should be good. The matchups should be good. And that's something to really get out and support. And it should be a pretty good product on the court as well.
Yeah, Taze Valley right now is only 3-3, but they're also, at a loss to Riddlesburg, Canal, Groveport, Madison. They're playing some really high level programs, but they've got some really nice pieces in that Circleville team at 5-1. That should be a couple of really good games each day. So if you get a chance, go out, check those games out, support those. A great cause there because everybody that got to meet and talk to Brad, we do miss him. So glad, as you said, that they are doing that to celebrate Brad.
No question.
So that'll be on Monday and Tuesday. Monday will be at Taze Valley. Tuesday will be at Logan Elm. Also on Tuesday, a couple really big league games. Huntington at 7-1 at Unioto at 5-0. That one's got a chance to be a pretty interesting matchup.
Well, it certainly does. And what we were talking about with Miami Trace earlier, it's going to test Unioto a little bit too, because Unioto, you have the Zane Trace game, you got this Chillicothe game coming up. I'm telling you, this Huntington team is extremely dangerous. We talked about it all the way back at the beginning of the year. Remember on our stream when Adena got them earlier in the year, I was telling people just calm down a little bit because they had some youth and they're going to start to grow in. Now what you're starting to see, we know how good Frankie Hirsch is. Now what you're starting to see is Baker gets better every time I turn the film on. The experience of Airy giving him some three-point shooting. Smith at the point guard position just has great connection of what Coach Uhrig is wanting. And they're getting just enough scoring from some different places. They're starting to play with a little bit of tempo. Now, that's the one thing that I do wonder in this matchup is I can't imagine that being completely the tempo they want to play. But if they take care of the ball, again, the Unioto offense has not – the offensive end hasn't been producing all of the points, in my opinion. Maybe you have a different feel on it. I feel like Unioto's biggest offensive outputs have been when they've really got the defense cranked up, and they've started. So the tempo in that one will be interesting to see how do both coaches want to go about the pace that they would like to see that game played at.
Yeah, I agree completely. So that's a really fun matchup. Also, going back to the Haynesville Healthcare Coaches Call-In Show, Frankie and Calvin Hirsch will be in studio to start that one. So if you have not watched it, it is here on YouTube.
And what I love about that, too, is I know you guys would love for everyone to come in and watch live and so forth. I love that, throughout the week, I was just telling you today, I wasn't able to watch live on the Wednesday night there, but I've been able to go back through a little bit at a time and hear those. So I love the opportunity to have that. To go back, I encourage people to do that. There's some really good interviews.
Yeah. So speaking of a really good interview, maybe our longest one we've had, which was with Chesapeake's Stephen Ader, the head coach. Yeah.
Very good.
They're unbeaten. They will be at Ironton on Tuesday.
Wow,
that's a great OVC matchup early in the season. Ironton with a chance to really prove themselves, and then also a chance for Chesapeake to kind of show they are kind of what we thought they are.
Yeah, that's one. I'll be honest, I missed in our notes, and when you said that, it just kind of like, oh wow, that's a good match. It's watching that Chesapeake team play last year and the way they continue to grow throughout their career, and listening to him talk in the interview, you can tell how the maturity and how you just feel year by year when you're that experienced, you feel like your team just is a little bit more accelerated in terms of what you can put in, some of the things you can do. And then this Ironton team is going to present them quite a challenge in terms of how they're going to guard them. As we mentioned the physicality earlier, and that has a chance to be really, really good.
Yeah, Maddox Z, Ashton Lane, some really outstanding athletes out on the floor. My question is kind of going to be who for Chesapeake is going to match up and keep Lane off the glass, because he is, as we talked about in the preseason, could be a monster on the glass, and if he can get going, that opens things up for everybody else.
I like the Chesapeake guard play. I think they got a chance to be really special this year. Watching them last year, that to me could be the X factor in that one. If they're able to take care of the basketball and offset some of that physicality by getting them into their stuff and running, because if you're Chesapeake, you want to be able to run offense with a little bit of rhythm, a little bit of space, where I would think Ironton kind of turn it more into a physical, get my body on your body type thing and kind of bang around a little bit and so forth. I think the Chesapeake guards can allow that to happen if they're able to be clean with the basketball.
Yeah, last year in the two matchups, Chesapeake won 67-61 and then won in overtime at Ironton 83-76. So
It's a lot of points.
yeah, a lot of points, some really high-level play will be on the floor over there on Tuesday night. Then, thankfully, no one plays Wednesday. I mean, Thursday makes sense no one plays because that is the holiday. But then some teams come back Friday, but Saturday, as we mentioned, we had that Chillicothe at Unioto live stream, but there's also a couple more games. Portsmouth at Wheelersburg, I think, has a chance to be fun. That's a Wheelersburg team opened their season with an 84-72 victory.
How about that?
Yeah.
Just fall out of bed and score 84 or what? Like, I mean, my goodness, that's impressive.
Everything's delayed because of the football run, and then you're like, oh man, they're probably gonna have to really. It's gonna take them a while to get going. Up 84 points.
Yeah.
Like,
Forget it. So much for it takes offense a little while to catch up.
Yeah,
Just drop 84.
Yeah, Coach Ader, he did say on the Haysville Healthcare Coach Collins show that the Kentucky teams don't play a ton of defense. It's more free flowing, and Wheelersburg seems like they just completely took advantage of that to score 84 in that one. So, and then that Portsmouth team, really athletic, should be a really fun matchup over there at Wheelersburg. I think that may be Wheelersburg's home opener.
That's not the easiest week for Portsmouth.
No, just we'll get to see where they are. They played 3 freshmen in their first or their last couple of games, so they're playing a lot of young kids.
Remember, their football group got better and better and better as the year went on, too. Maybe basketball is going to follow a lot of that same pattern.
Yep, completely agree with that. And then Eastern Pike at Eastern Brown is going to be a game to watch on Saturday as well. That's going to be a tough matchup for Eastern Pike, but for Eastern Brown, it's a nice job of scheduling to see kind of a different type of opponent than what they would see in the Shack.
Yeah, I like that for Eastern Pike. There, go on the road, test yourself. If you're listening earlier in the show, I'm becoming a big fan of this Eastern Brown group. I think they've got a chance to go on a 2-year run here. That's going to be really good this year and next. But at the same time, Eastern Pike starting to really establish themselves in the SOC realignment. I think they're a school that's really benefited in a lot of sports. I talked about that in the fall, and now, because of that, it allows you to go out in the non-league like this and play this type of game, and I think that's outstanding scheduling.
Yes, I do as well. So that'll be all for boys basketball. Remember to catch our live streams, but now we're going to jump over to the girls' side where, man, we had a couple really, really good games this week with the exact same score. Both were 44-39 finals. The first one was our live stream on Tuesday down at Portsmouth. Fairland comes away with a 44-39 win over Portsmouth. Just an outstanding high school basketball game.
Oh, no question. I had a chance to watch that. I wasn't able to go down with you guys. You and Carson on the call were outstanding. And, everything, I really appreciated Kenneth's work.
Yes.
Because a lot of times when I'm calling the game, I don't get the chance to see all the camera stuff. When you sit back and watch a game, man, he does a good job for our productions. He deserves a big-time shout-out for the work he does. But, yeah, I really enjoyed your –
I do want to say, if Monday's game's not very good, it's because Kenneth's not going to be there. So if it's not very good, sorry. So,
but I was listening to you guys' call, and you and I had talked a lot going in, and you were sharing with me what both teams had kind of lost in graduation, what both teams were coming back. And I'll kind of give you a shout out here, John. I thought you nailed it. You were talking about obviously how good Portsmouth was in their starting 5 and how good Fairland was, but you thought that Fairland is slowly but surely starting to add some young depth that you thought could be a factor. And as Portsmouth got into a little foul trouble, Fairland got into a little foul trouble. In a game where only 44 points was needed for the win, a couple of those young kids really stepped up. Now, obviously, Fairland's best players played well, as you'd expect them to do, but talk to me a little bit about the young kids that just kind of stepped in and did some nice things for Fairland.
Well, I mean, you had Kenna Miller. Didn't play a whole lot, didn't play as much as the other two, but she stepped in, made a free throw in the first half, had a couple of nice plays early, but Lola Donahue had 2 points, but also I thought gave some really good minutes, some nice toughness as well. But then Riley Russell played a lot, especially in the fourth quarter. I think she may have played the entire fourth quarter. She hit a 3 to put them up 37-32 and just really played pretty, not carefree, but like pretty loose. And it felt like the moment wasn't too big for those freshmen. So that was 3 freshmen that they had played big minutes. They had a sophomore that stepped in, played some big minutes as well. When you're starting 5 seniors, who 3 of them have been a huge part of 3 different Final Four appearances, and the other 2 were a big part of last year's as well. You've got all kinds of experience, but that moment's not going to be too big for them.
No, right.
But if you get some foul trouble, which they did, Bailey Russell picked up 3 fouls in the first half, so they had to go elsewhere. Tegan Leap had 4 fouls. Addison Cornell had 4 fouls.
She was good.
Yeah,
she
was
did
really
some
good.
nice things for them.
But it was that young depth gave them huge minutes and provided them with toughness and ability, and you can tell they're the next group that's going to be really good for this Fairland team as well.
Yeah, no question about it. Well, let me go over to the Portsmouth side too, because there's something else on my mind. I was dying to pick your brain on this on the show in my notes here. On the Portsmouth side, obviously they been there, done that.
Yeah.
I mean, the ultimate high school prize. They'll never take that away from them. They graduate some key offense. They have plenty back to be really good again. They struggled at the free throw line. I thought they struggled in some intangibles. I just wanted to get your take on this Portsmouth team. The one thing I had in my notes as I was taking notes as I was watching the game that night, I've always felt like the Allen kid is so good at making the right basketball play. I just wonder for this team, is she going to have to force the action on the offensive end just a little bit more in some of these bigger games? Again, maybe unfair in just one rivalry matchup. Just an observation I'm making. Talk to me about Portsmouth.
Well, I don't know if people realize what they're going to, and we've talked about it, is the loss of Daisha Reed.
Yes.
Because, even if she was not number 1 on the scouting report, or she made sure the right play was being made.
She had the ball in her hands so much. Yeah.
And because of that, it made things a little bit easier for everyone else. Where now, until Salem Allen keeps shooting with confidence from the outside, they really have one outside threat. So you can kind of pack the lane a little bit on them, where Reed could kind of spread the floor a little bit. Well, you're not going to lose Sienna. You're not going to lose Sienna Allen. So, if Woods is driving, it's going to be hard for her to drive and kick out to Sienna Allen, because everyone's going to know where the OU commit's going to be at all times. So I would like to see her force it a little bit more, and even if it's take some bad shots, because there's a span in that third quarter where she wasn't taking shots at all.
Yeah.
And I would like to see it a little bit more, maybe not to an unhealthy amount, but especially like when Haven Carter got in foul trouble, and so they were down the third score. Someone's got to pick up the slack there, and the other kids were trying, but ultimately they just didn't have enough.
Well, what I mean by that is I want to clarify is a kid who's that good, that smooth, that high level of basketball IQ, her forcing a few more shots or her forcing herself into the paint a little bit more is, I guess, a better way to say it. I'd just like to see her be a little bit more aggressive in terms of attacking and scoring, or looking to create the direct pass for some teammates. I think that's the biggest thing that I see from last year's Portsmouth team to this year's Portsmouth team. Still really, really good, led by a phenomenal player. But that's just something that jumped out at me in that matchup, to where I thought early in the game she kind of had that look and that feel, and then I thought that started to dwindle away a little bit. Now, again, when the ball doesn't go in, the frustration's there a little bit. Obviously, the free throw line didn't treat Portsmouth very well in that game. Again, you learn from all that. Fairland was extremely hungry, and credit to them, they got the win. But again, 2 teams that I think are going to be exciting to really watch move forward.
Yeah, and in that game, you mentioned, kind of forcing some things. There was a play in the first half where, and I didn't think Addison Godby really forced things at all. She did force a shot, but because there's so much attention on her, it ends up making a long rebound on the backside, and they get a putback off of it. So it's just sometimes forcing shots can help out your teammates because you're getting so much attention on you as well. So not a bad thing at all. But that game was really fun to watch. So the Riley Russell 3 that put Fairland up by 5, Kiki Woods immediately answers with a reverse layup to cut it down to 3. They get a stop, and then Salem Allen is able to step up, knocks down a 3 to tie it. On the next possession, Kiki Woods steals it, feeds Sienna Allen to take the lead. But man, it was that was kind of what makes Fairland so good. You go up a 7-0 run in what felt like an instant to go down. They had been leading since early in the first quarter.
Yeah.
And then East Telefaro comes down, hits a really tough shot to tie it. Then they get a stop, and then you have your seniors make plays. So Addison Godby, who's just unreal with the ball at 6 foot, long,
what a weapon.
She has 9 points on the game, 5 rebounds, 5 rebounds, 4 blocks, and then 4 assists, but no bigger assist than the one out of an inbound. So they had the ball underneath with about 1:08 left, and they're able to get it out to her out on the top of the key. Bailey Russell sets a high screen, rolls back. Godby realizes she's doubled, kicks it out to Russell, who you don't want to leave her alone. She was 3 for 4 from 3 on that night, hitting her last 3 threes of the game, including that one with just over a minute left. And then they get a couple stops. Russell hits Addison Cornell for a layup, and they get the 5-point win. So you mentioned Cornell was really good. 9 points, 8 rebounds in the game for her, and it felt like she just made so many
just
little
seemed
plays.
like you guys were calling her name all night and just big play after big play. And you mentioned that action late in the game to get a great shooter loose. You're like, how does a great shooter like that come? A lot of it's off the action. That pop action's so difficult to get your help over to because, again, you got to remember the person coming off the ball screen is really good as well. So it puts the defense in a real pickle, and the rotation was just a little late to get there, and she knocked it down.
Yeah, on the night, Santa Allen ended up with 17 points. Kiki Woods was all over the scoring or just the stat page. She was under 10 points, but I believe she had 6 steals, like 5 assists, 6 rebounds, just made all kinds of things happen as well. But the big one for Fairland, they were 6 of 15 from 3. 3 of 4 was Bailey Russell, but Riley Russell, Issa Telefaro, and Tegan Leap all hit threes. Cornell hit a long 2 that I think was originally called a 3 that they went into it correctly into a 2. But man, when you got all those different players that can shoot it, it makes you really hard to guard, and that thing opens things up a little bit for Godby, where she can make so many plays happen.
Well, and there's no way you can score against those types of defenses if you don't have a 3rd, 4th, and 5th girl that can make some shots, make some plays, and I thought that was the big key for Fairland.
Yeah, I agree completely. So, and when really looking back at it, one of the things I thought about it, I didn't say it on the stream, but in that first 4 minutes and 5 seconds where Fairland did not get a shot off, like just could not do it offensively, it just made me think like those really lopsided scores that we've seen from, well, actually both of them, but especially like Portsmouth. You watch it, you're like, yeah, they're not going to give up many points. You just can't get shots off on them.
Well, you can't hardly complete multiple passes during the possession against them.
Yeah, it's just they are a very, very tough team, and despite having a couple losses this year, I think they're going to be one of those favorites to get back to the Final Four with Portsmouth. So nothing to really hang their heads on because Haven Carter averages 17 a game, had 4 fouled out.
Foul trouble.
Yeah.
Foul trouble was a factor for sure. And again, that's why you say next time through you learn from that a little bit because again, I continue to see it in so many games where kids just have to be a little bit more aware of how many fouls they have and at what point in the game it is. And sometimes you gotta learn to live to play another play.
Right. Yep, I agree completely. So an outstanding game down at Portsmouth that evening. So go back and rewatch it. That's been our biggest basketball stream so far was that one. So, and you could see why when both teams were on the floor, why it was a rematch of the Final Four from a season ago. Saturday, speaking of a rematch from really good games a season ago, we had 7-1 McClain hosting 7-1 Hillsboro. The Tigers come away with a 44-39 win. Hillsboro actually led 11-2 early in the game, but man, McClain just grinded it out, slowly worked their way back into the game, got back into it by halftime, and then were able to pull out the victory in the end to move to 8-1. Hillsboro drops to 7-2. McClain with the now a 1-game lead in the FAC. Leah Lovett, 16 points, 9 rebounds. She knocked down a couple of threes in the game that was huge for McClain. Paisley Pryor with 11 points, 6 rebounds. But then if you look at Hillsboro, 16 points, 8 rebounds from Tylee Davis and Ella Jordan with 14 points. So ultimately, the top two on each side were pretty even.
Yeah.
But it was McClain's depth that ultimately was able to win them this game.
Well, when you think of Davis and Jordan there of Hillsboro, and they come and they jump out to the 11-2 advantage, it seems like the theme of our show here with a lot of these defending champions is the maturity and the been there, done that ability to withstand that early surge. We talked about it with Miami Trace's boys. We talked about it with Unioto boys. Here in this example of the the McClain girls, defending champions there, they don't panic. They're very easy in a big game. You come in, emotions are high, you're down 11-2. It's like quicksand, like, oh, no, here we go. You don't see that with them. So you see, and then their best players leading the way has a lot to do with that leadership. As you said, Lovett and Pryor, both really difficult matchups. Their versatility makes it hard. So they're able. So when you talk about the depth of McClain, yes, but it's kind of what I was talking about a second ago. It's through those two that they draw so much attention that they make the game easier to play for everybody around them. And low scoring affair. I mean, 44-39, but again, I mentioned to you, remember back at the beginning of the year, the first time I turned on the film, I couldn't get over the difference of physicality from a year ago with McClain. And I had asked you if you felt like that had come a little bit from the soccer run, the competitiveness and some of that different thing. You and I had a neat conversation about that. But, man, these McClain girls know how to win, and they're certainly doing it.
Yeah, it was one of those, they've grown as a team, and they are just a really, really tough matchup physically for a lot of teams as well. So really after that first fast start for Hillsboro, McClain held them to only 5 points in the second quarter, and that was a huge difference maker in the game. So Allie Burgess was 6 in the game for McClain, and Lara Henson with 9 as well, including 7 for 8 at the free throw line. So and Pryor was also 7 of 8 at the line, so 18 of 24 at the free throw line for McClain. Hillsboro shot the ball well at the line, 12 of 17, but when you're fouling late and the other team isn't missing, it makes it really hard to ultimately come back and win the game. So really good win for McClain as they will finish the first half of the FAC unbeaten, I believe. I think they all played each other already, because I know Washington Courthouse and Miami Trace had their matchup, which is the rivalry matchups, and then Jackson and Circleville or Chillicothe did as well. So a really nice win for McClain. I think it's January 30th is the rematch over at Hillsboro.
Yeah, well, and even though there's some teams that have improved, we talked about this earlier in the year, that's kind of a top-heavy conference. It's going to be really hard for someone else to get one of them, maybe a Courthouse. I mean, I know some of those rivalry games, you never know. Also, congratulations, Coach Adena there at Courthouse, 400 career wins.
Nice.
I saw the other night. That's incredible.
Yeah, that is outstanding for anyone. So Coach John Denton with 400 career wins for Washington Courthouse. So moving over to our standout performances. So, like we said on the boys' side, these can be individual, these can be teams, these can be, anything. It can be one thing, it can be Huntington. Huntington's Brailee Hauswirth averaged 19.5 points and 11 rebounds in their 2 wins this week as the Huntsmen move to 5-5 on the season. They started off, I believe, 2-5 and won 3 straight.
Well, they were a confusing basketball team earlier in the year. I got a lot of questions about Huntington because they caught a lot of people's attention when they were able to compete with Unioto and play about a 12-point game.
Yeah.
I mean, again, probably a game they weren't going to win, but I think people were impressed by their ability just to take care of the basketball and play with them a little bit. And then they turn around and they get knocked off in league play a little bit, and they play some close games. Paint Valley in a real low-scoring game beat them, 39-34. And listening to Coach Uhrig on your guys' show, you could tell he was at a loss on what to do on the offensive end. He felt like he had a group that could guard you. He had a group that maybe had a little bit better chance to be. But sometimes what you need is just your best athletes to defend, and then you need your best players to step forward and really help the offensive end. And I think that's what Hauswirth's done there. You in your notes there, you have her almost 20 points a game, 11 rebounds, and the 2 wins this week. And that's what it's going to take, because if you remember, you go back to, the Jackson game, even then it was kind of an ugly 38-33. So this is a this is a team, the ability to hold Westfall down a little bit.
Yes.
That's an impressive defensive effort, but it's that tempo that Huntington's a really long. If you haven't had a chance to see Huntington play in person, they're really long. They really have some length. So when they get in the quarter court and they stretch out and they really know their assignments and stuff, they're hard to score against. So this is a team that their defense is going to keep them in games. They just got to find a way to score. I think the other night someone was laughing like at the end of the first quarter. I think the Southeast it was like 3-2.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just, but that's how you have to play. That's how you have to play. And,
Right.
you know, they'll be in a lot of games, a lot of dog fights because of that.
Yes, I agree completely. Now you mentioned the Westfall game, so I know you had a note on Westfall as well.
Yeah, I remember I talked about Cook when we were streaming them against
Yes.
Southeastern, and I know she went through some foul trouble that day, and I talked how she was going to grow from that. She's had a solid week. You know, she was pretty good in that Huntington game, but then in their win against Paint Valley the other night, I know she really got it going. But she's a kid that can really score the basketball. The ball comes out of her hands nice. If you watch her on film a little bit and pay attention to her range, John, she'll shoot it a step or two off the line, which in today's basketball can stretch the floor that much more for someone like Mel, who's such a tough matchup.
And it seems like the younger male is coming along
Well,
too.
the younger Mel's starting to give him some post presence as well. And, you know, I know you were impressed with them too. On the offensive end, they had 3, 4, 5 kids that could score it a little bit. They just have to find themselves defensively a little bit. They have to take care of the ball. Obviously, Huntington got them in a pace that favored Huntington far more than them, and that'll come with a little bit of growth. But I just wanted to highlight she's starting to trend in the right direction, and a year and a half into her career, she's a pretty good player.
Yeah,
she's got a
she
chance
is.
to be really good.
100% agree. Now, we did have another stream on Thursday. It was West beating Minford 49-38. West Brailee Pistol and Haley Carver combined for 35 of the Senators' 49 points in that matchup.
Yeah, that was a fun one to follow along with too. I had a chance to watch a lot of it live, and then went back and watched a little bit of the end. And give Memphis a lot of credit. I think West is really good. I think you agree with me on that. I know you've seen him in person once, but I think they have a chance to be really good. So give Memphis some credit there. I thought that was a pretty impressive showing, just how they compete. It wasn't always pretty, but they just found a way to compete. And in the end, I thought West was just a little too much, but I thought Memphis really showed me something in terms of their ability just to have some grit.
Well, and then that's kind of Coach Miller's thing with Minford is we kind of joked about it a couple years ago is the gritty not pretty is you're going to know that you played Minford over on the girls basketball side because they're going to make you earn every single point. And it looks like even with graduating an outstanding senior class, they're carrying it over this year as well. For West, they are now 7-1 on the season. They'll return all 5 starters next year. So you mentioned Eastern Brown has a chance to be really special for the next 2 years. This is a West team that has a chance to be really special.
Great comparison.
Yeah, because you have Pistol and Carver, but then Macy Wisman, who can go off at any time. Maddie Lawless just keeps getting better and better. And then Allie Buckner as well for them. So they are a team that has a really high ceiling for the next couple of years, especially in that Division 6 for the postseason. Minford, nothing to hang their heads on. I believe is now 5-1 on the year, so a nice start for them. They beat Ironton on Saturday, so yeah, they're 5-1 on the season. So speaking of teams that are off to a really nice start, Logan Elm 6-1 on the year. We've talked about them a couple different times, and nothing really specific on them but Kenny Ingram 19.3 points a game. Palin Ray, 15.2 and 4.2 assists. And then Kimmy Petty also averaging 10.5 points a game. This week they play Westfall on Monday. That could be a really fun game to watch because those teams can really both get up and down. Yeah, that could be a pretty high-scoring game to start off the Brad Morris Classic. And then they'll take on a Taze Valley team, 6-1, who's much improved over last year on Tuesday.
Yeah, you're right about that matchup with Westfall with some of the points. My fear for Westfall would be some of the pressure that Logan Elm will be able to apply to really test their ball handling and so forth. Yeah, we were both really high on Logan Elm. We've always talked about when you're that good at guard, you're almost accidentally going to be pretty good.
Right.
And, when they're sharing it and they're shooting it, now they've struggled at times with some size, which we thought they might. But again, their guard play, and when they shoot that three ball, we talked earlier about you know if you're going to shoot the three ball, you can't panic or turn your back on it. Who was it? Chillicothe boys we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
When you're 3 of 21, if you're taking good shots, then you have to trust that if we get those same 21 shots tomorrow night, we might make 10 or 11.
Right.
And you just have to trust it. So. And if you're Logan Elm, I don't see how you can be successful without having the ability to stretch the floor and shoot that three ball. So you're right. Going into that classic there, that'll be something to really watch in terms of that Logan Elm team. It doesn't surprise me at all to see them off to that start.
No, not at all. So another team with a nice start so far this season. Unioto now 7-1. Milee Smith scored 51 points in the 2 wins this week, and I don't know if she played in the fourth quarter of either. So
she didn't.
Yeah,
no.
so it's just kind of, what she's able to do in shortened minutes has been really impressive. The Dayton commit is now 9th in SVC history in career points, which is outstanding when you look at how deep and talented the girls' side has been in the SVC.
Well, the biggest thing that's jumped out at me with Smith is it looks to me that she's finding more rhythm in her perimeter shot.
Mm-hmm.
Early in the year, I didn't think the ball was coming out of her hand real well, and it just looked different to me. Where here lately, it just seems to be a little bit more in rhythm, a little bit more confident, and she's really shooting it well. And as I've said throughout her career, when she makes the perimeter shot, I don't know what you do with her. Because off the dribble, she's really dynamic. In the open court, she's really dynamic. So when she does that, that completes the puzzle. If you're rooting for Unioto there. And I know they got that matchup coming up with Circleville there. That's interesting because I've always thought, what could hurt Unioto the most is a team that can somehow handle the basketball against their pressure to where you can get into the half court. And you'll notice that when some good post players have been able to catch it deep, they've had some success. It's easier said than done in terms of handling the ball against them to get it down there in the first place.
Yeah, you want to make them play a half court game and really value the possessions, because if they miss a couple shots, they're not a big time offensive rebound team as well. But you got some really good guards, with Holbert and Beard, and then Dennis is really coming along for them, but not a lot of depth as well. So that's going to be a big one to watch. Next Monday, which is going to be a SOSA live stream, me and you will have that one from Unioto. Addison Edgerton has been outstanding for Circleville. They're unbeaten to this point. They play the same teams that Logan Elm does this week, as they play Tays Valley on Monday, and then on Tuesday they will play Westfall. So do you have anything else on standouts?
No, not necessarily on standouts. I think that is the matchup thing. I guess that would fall more into the games to watch for and so forth. I just think that's what I think we have some outstanding players that are going to be going head to head against each other. So I think that's something we'll be talking about in standout performances in the weeks to come.
And then each week we pick a Perfection 1 collision of the game, typically from one of our streaming games, but this one will not be from a streaming game. It's actually from a game I was at on Saturday night. Going to get the clip sent to us. It was Paint Valley's Karis Dye taking a charge in the first half of their game against Piketon on Saturday night. As a big-time impact play, a big play for momentum in that first half. We'll talk about that a little bit more here in a second, but remember that you can find Perfection 1 in Pickaway, Pike, and Ross counties, as you will find why they are highly recommended. So in that game, Dye finished with 22 points, 13 rebounds. They just weren't able to maintain possession enough in the game, as Piketon ends up winning 55-40. But for this Paint Valley team, 4-4 on the season, only 3 wins each of the last 2 years. So they're moving in the right direction. Kind of a tough week this week, but Dye's been outstanding.
Well, the four wins is huge. You're gonna get under the Christmas tree there with 4 wins this year, where last year you only had 3 for the whole year. So it's a growth. And then what happens is expectations come with it. You start to have some success. Your standard goes up a little bit. And you want to play better. I thought Piketon was really good in the third quarter last night. I thought they had come out, they shared the ball. They had 3 or 4 gals make some shots, and that's what really jumps out about Piketon. Obviously, Kelly and Forbes are really good, but they have a supporting cast that can create some space off the dribble, that can make some different shots. And when Piketon defends and when Piketon takes care of the basketball, they're going to be difficult to beat because they're a team that can offensively start to play into the high 40s, low 50s. And as we're seeing in a lot of these girls' basketball scores, when you're able to do that, you put yourself in position to beat a lot of quality opponents.
Yeah, so they are now 6-3 on the season, are the Red Streaks. On Saturday night, Jalen Forbes led them with 15 points. Layla Kelly had 10, including 7 out of 9 points in a 9-0 run that really put the game away in that third quarter that you talked about. Maddie Hill hit 3 threes for them. Only one senior on the team, which is Hale. Does a really good job of spacing the floor for them. But you mentioned a couple of those juniors, Reese Shanks. Hayden Daniels was really good in that third quarter as well. Taylor Roberts has been good, a freshman for them. This is a Piketon team that just keep following along throughout the season. They're just going to keep getting better and better. What I really liked was when they went into that, the dribble drive, the handoff, they're running some clock, but they also had Roberts and Hale on the outside where if they're driving, they're able to kick it out. Each of them knock down a 3 as they're running clock. Man, those are daggers for the opponent.
The Mighty Hell in the corner is a great example of what we're talking about. It just spaces the floor.
Mm-hmm.
And some teams have stayed home on her, and she hasn't been able to get a lot of shots off. Other teams have had to bring the extra help on some of the dribble drive downhill because, as we mentioned, Kelly and Forbes and Shanks and company can get to the paint against you. And it's just a great take the matchup, against like a Huntington. Remember we said earlier about the low score. If they're able to take care of the basketball and they're able to up the tempo just a little bit to push the game into the 40s and 50s, now all of a sudden you're putting Huntington in an uncomfortable pace of scoring. But if Huntington's able to get that, so that's the type of thing you're seeing in all of these different matchups. What tempo do you want to play, and who has the ability to get the game into their tempo?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so just keep an eye on that. Huntington and Piketon teams in the SVC
trending in the right direction over the last 7 to 10 days.
Yes, 100%. So don't really have any games of the week this week. We're going to go over that. Go over to the games to watch. Monday's got some great games. So if you're watching this on Monday, you've got a lot of opportunities. Now we highlighted some on the boys' side. We've got the live stream down at Gallia Academy on Monday as well. But take a look for some of these games. You've got Western Brown at 6-1 taking on Hillsboro at 7-2. Coach Pickerel on the Haynes-Stoll Healthcare Coaches Call-In Show talked about how good this Western Brown team is. Hillsboro is a really good team as well, so that would be a really fun matchup. Western Brown has 5 players averaging 8.9 points a game, led by Jadlyn Jenicky, who averages 18 a game. Tyler Davis averages 19 and 14 for Hillsboro. So that should be a really fun matchup. Pretty high pace in that one, I would guess, as well. Wheelersburg will be at Minford. 3-1 Wheelersburg at 5-1 Minford. That's a Monday night game. That's always a just a brawl between those two. Like if you tell me that game's going to end up with the winner scoring in the 20s, I would not be shocked because they are going to guard and be real physical with each other, just making things really difficult. They're not always the prettiest games, but man, they are fun to watch how hard those kids compete with each other in those matchups. So, one to keep an eye on. And this is a nice contrasting styles. Fort Fry at 8-0 at Fed Hawk, who's only 4-3 on the year. Fed Hawk's done a really good job with their schedule, but Fed Hawk averages like 15 more points a game than Fort Fry. So if they're able to speed them up a little bit, that could be an interesting game over there in Stewart. It's just, that Fort Fry team, outstanding, well-coached, new coaches, but really well-coached team, and that's going to make them really difficult to play against.
Yeah, Fort Fry loves their basketball. They really do, and it's always been a lot of tradition down that way. And you're right, this Fed Hawk group's been really good, and as a result, they went ahead and said, hey, let's push ourselves a little bit. We may have some extra numbers there in the loss column, but we think it'll pay off for us later on. So that's certainly a team, regardless of what happens in this one, to just kind of pay attention to. Sometimes when you lose your confidence, but I think that's a group that's been battle tested enough. I think they're going to keep big picture in mind. They're going to be fun to follow.
Yep, I agree completely. Another one in SOC, one play. Green at 5-1 at Notre Dame 5-1. Jason Bryant's averaging 28 points a game for Notre Dame.
Yeah, and obviously we know Green, a team too that had taken that giant step last year, and this year they challenged themselves there in the opener, and now getting in the league play, and they're trying to check the boxes, and this is going to kind of set the standard there in that conference. That's that'll draw a lot of eyeballs. You're right. You got a couple really elite scorers on both sides. Oftentimes, those big time scorers will do their thing. Sometimes it's that second or third girl that gets involved on both sides that determines the winner.
Well, the biggest thing for them in that kind of dismantling of Clay the other day, a 55-17 game, was the fact that it wasn't, it wasn't Strickland and McBee that were really doing it. Ava Abrams had 8 points in the game. You got 9 points, I believe. I'm just from Addison Blizzard. You just, Sydney Boehner had 12. I mean, those are names that you're not hearing a lot. You're obviously you're hearing Knapp. She had 13 points in the game, only 6 of 9 shooting, but I mean 6 of 9 for 13 points. You'll take that. But when you're getting it, Strickland didn't do a lot of scoring. Strickland and McBee only got 10 in the game, and you win by 38. I mean, over a good team. That just says you've got a lot of depth to your team, and they're just getting better and better.
No, there's no question about it. And you go into a matchup like this, I think what that shows me in a game like that, when you say Knapp took 9 shots, that just tells you there's a maturity there in terms of big picture of knowing that, look, for us to do what we want to do, we know how good she is and what we can get out of her. Mm-hmm. We're going to need different components on the offensive end to be able to step up and deliver in clutch moments as we get into the heart of our schedule. And that's what you're kind of preparing for there. And then now here's a situation where the moment is now here, where in terms of the early leg up in the league, it comes down to this game, and we'll kind of see who's ready for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree completely. And then one more on Monday night, Lucasville Valley at 4-2 at Waverly at 6-2. Waverly is kind of quietly off to the 6-2 start after they had some sizable losses, but man, they've taken care of business otherwise.
Well, I think again it reminds me that the how dangerous the Piketon group can be. I know the Piketon Unioto matchup was kind of like a whoa, but again that's a terrible matchup for Piketon in terms of the tempo they like to play. Playing Unioto at that pace, you're going to give up 70. Yeah, I mean, that's why I've said all along that Piketon on opening night there against Waverly, when I watched them in person, I kind of came away not knowing. And then I watched Waverly against Southeastern. I started to see a little bit more of the athleticism. Mm-hmm. So, look, 6-2, I think that's an outstanding start. I have not had a chance to see Valley this year. I've heard some really good things. That might be one I try to catch some online and look at them a little bit. But that's a pretty big standings game, man.
Yes, completely agree. And then you got a few days off. Saturday, Huntington at Valley. I think that's got a chance to be interesting because, with how well Huntington's been playing, and that could be a really interesting one as well. And then Sunday, when I originally looked at it, before I really looked into Marietta a little bit more, I thought this would be a really good game. But Fairland against Marietta at Marietta College on Sunday. Fairland right now 6-1. They're down at Myrtle Beach. I think it's like the Beach Ball Classic. And they lost their first one. They won their second one. They're playing some really good teams down there. So just see how they are reacclimated to Ohio is kind of to keep an eye out on that on Sunday.
Busy schedule, again, pushing themselves over the holiday, coming off the win against Portsmouth. I'm sure that made the trip south a little bit more enjoyable. But no, you test yourself and you go through a lot of these different things, a lot of these different environments. You get that tournament feel. I think that's the other thing people lose sight of is when you get some of these things you're playing in on the neutral site, get a little bit more of that tournament, that feel to it. Because obviously they want to check regular season boxes, but the big box they want to check is going to be down the road. Yeah,
they've gotten to that Final Four each of the last 3 years. They want to get to that Final Two after that and then have themselves a chance to win a state championship. So, it should be a really fun week. We'll be back for overtime next week as well, but we'll have some different things to talk about on there. We've got some outstanding games to watch throughout the week. as always, check out our live streams. Monday, South Point at Gallia Academy. Tuesday, McClain at Zane Trace. Saturday, Chillicothe at Unioto. All boys games this week. Our Haynes-Stoll Healthcare Coaches Call-In Show here from the Chillicothe Sports Card Studio will be Sunday night. This Sunday and next, we'll have some special guests inside the, as I said, Chillicothe Sports Card Studio, and then we'll be out at a lot of games otherwise as well. So looking forward to a really nice week, and we'll get a chance to spend a lot of time with our families, probably Wednesday through Friday, and then we just throw them all to the side as we get back into the gyms again, starting on Saturday.
What an exciting week as you rattle those off. I've been doing a lot of prep work for a lot of the different teams. I think we have some great matchups. As we went through some of those, there was even another 3 or 4 games. I'm like, man, I wish we kind of get that, but there's only so much to go around. So it's one of those where I just love the opportunity to not only call the games live, but to also go back and watch so many different games. And as you said, on the nights we're off, we try to get out and see games. And it should be a really fun week. Merry Christmas to everyone. Be safe, but again, get out and if you have the opportunity to be fortunate to be off work this week, try to get out and see some games.
Mm-hmm. Yep, 100%, and be safe when doing so. So, you got anything else?
That'll do it. Looking forward to it. We'll have plenty to talk about in the weeks to come because even though we have a couple of days off in the middle of this week, I think this week has a chance to be one of the better basketball weeks we've had to this point.
Yeah, I agree completely. So, so get out, watch some games, have a great holiday with your family or however you determine to spend it. So if, you may see me in a poker room somewhere on one of those nights. So just throwing it out there maybe. But we will see. So for Shayne Combs, I'm John Bruce. You've been watching SOSA Overtime presented by Perfection One. Have a great rest of your week.